and you always have to stay on the top of your game. So thinking I'm a professional, meaning that, I guess in the standard term of a professional, meaning that, this is an income, I think is a really bad way to think, right? So do I feel like a professional trader? No, I do not. Primarily because I just find it more advantageous to just think of myself as someone who's constantly learning, constantly adapting, constantly changing.
And on the morning of the crash, I had a very big short position in the S&P futures. And I had a full surgery schedule. So I had to go to work. And I closed out my position. And had I not closed out my position, I would have made over $400,000 over the next several hours. And in today's dollars, that would have been over $1 million in the morning. And that was the day that convinced me that I could make money as a trader. Even though I did not make any money that day, it convinced me that the potential was there.
When I first transitioned into full-time trading, that was the point where I saw that, okay, you know what, Forex has basically paid for half my rent. And what that started from was, I looked at the way that, okay, I need $3,300 to live for my monthly expenses, right? You always have to look at it that way, because whenever you start to trade, you're shown this big lifestyle. Okay, you know what, you can make thousands of dollars, you can make hundreds and thousands, retire your parents, buy a home. Everyone has those dreams, don't get me wrong, those dreams are nice dreams, but those are all dreams. You have to look at it in a logical way, how you're going to go about that. So one way I went about that was, I saw that, okay, how much do I need to pay my phone bill, which is going to be around $120. So I said, okay, Raja, let's start with that. So I started with that the first 2 months, and I saw that, okay, I had a $5,000 account, and the first month of that account, I ended up with $250. I withdrew $120. We put that towards the phone bill. Once that happened, that withdrawal was real. Those profits were real. Like a lot of people, they make a lot of money, but they don't withdraw and then they lose it. They don't make it real. Once that happening, I know the 7th and the 8th month, my profit was around $1,800. Out of that, $1,000 went to my rent. So that was half my rent. My rent at that time was like $2,000, so half that went to that. And I looked around and I'm like, wait a minute, this paid half of my rent. So then I said to myself, okay, this is actually going somewhere now. So this is after a year of me losing. And then 9 months after that, I was like, okay, you know what, this is now starting to make sense a little bit, because now I'm not chasing money, I'm chasing the process, which is the key. And I distinctly remember the 11th month profit was around $2,800. And I told my wife, hey, you know what? We made our monthly rent from Forex. And that was the day I said to myself, okay, you know what? This actually works, because now that was real to me.
I was at the University of Chicago for 7 years. And the entire time I was there, I felt like I really should be downtown. I felt like my heart was downtown as a floor trader, and I just couldn't do it. I grew up, my family had no money. There were 6 of us, and we had a 2-bedroom house, and I didn't take my first shower until I was in high school. So that was our life. And here I was in medical school, and it was a guarantee that I would make a lot of money, and I was afraid to give it up. I grew up poor. I hated being poor. I wanted to make a lot of money, and I was in a position to make a lot of money. And it's just hard when you have something that's guaranteed to make you a lot of money and give it up for something that you have no guarantees. And I hear from traders fairly regularly asking the very question that you ask: career transition. How do they go from one career to another career? One of my friends who's a trader was a computer consultant for years, and he used to email me all the time saying, Al, I want to switch. And I kept telling him, don't be too fast. You don't make the switch until you feel like you're making more money as a trader than what you're making in your other job. and that you've been doing it for at least several months, and so that you're consistently doing very well. And at that point, it makes sense to make the switch. Even if you find someone who's really successful and you think they're honest, if you to do what they're doing, it has to suit your personality.
Yeah.
And I think that's very, very important. As you know, I scalp a lot. I do swing trade, and I do trade on the daily and weekly charts, but I'm a scalper. And most of my trades are scalps, because if you're a scalper, you take lots of little trades. But in addition to the swing trades, but most of what I'm doing every day is I'm scalping, buying and selling, right? And if someone is not comfortable with that, they would be very unhappy listening to me talk about trading during the day, because it has to be compatible with your personality.
I spend my entire life, if you will, for the last 5 years since I've been in the education business, trying to fix people's expectations. Because, every time I turn on YouTube, binary options, I took $100 to $20,000 in 3.4 seconds. And, all of my competitors love to tell you how much money you're going to make, right? And we're in the greed business, right? So we're selling greed. If you really think about what an educator does, he's selling greed. He's selling you the greed of money, right? And there's only one other business that you can be in that is more powerful, and that's when you're selling sex, right? So we're in the two most powerful businesses, right? Greed. And, most people, what's the first thing you do when you look at an educator's website? You go and you find out how much money either he's making or how much money his students say they're making. And that's what makes you look at their past performance, their track record, right? And that's what gets you excited, and that's what motivates you. Now, that's probably one of the worst things you can do. Because, first of all, just because somebody is making some amount of money does not mean you can make that amount of money. So just because somebody is doing something doesn't necessarily mean that you can do it, right? Doesn't mean that you can do it. Don't ever, it's good for me to look at her and take a little bit from it, but I had to find what works for me, because like I said, I have to find how the market makes sense to me. Do I see this inefficiency, and can I exploit this inefficiency? Is it something that I can do?
You lose, and then you do something stupid, and you lose more. And now, if I have a bad trade, I say to myself, in general, everything is going to be between 40 and 60%. The best setups, you win 60%. The worst setups, you win 40%. And that's pretty much true any time, all day long, at any instant, all day long.
The only reason people fail with the plan is because they involve emotions in a loss. When price, makes a high, comes back to retest and retest the high, that happens 70% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time. So there's always a losing probability. Now, what happens when you take a loss? Do you take that loss as a losing probability, or do you take that loss personally? That's the difference, right?
I know the math, and I'm comfortable with the math, and it took a long time to get comfortable with the math. So I know that if I just keep doing what's right, I'm going to win. So I don't worry if I lose. I don't worry if I lose twice in a row. I'm just confident that if I just keep doing what I'm doing and I don't get emotional, and it's the math is on my side. It's like a casino, except that instead of me being the customer, I'm the house. And they know that every now and then someone is going to win $10,000 in a slot machine, and they don't care, because they know that the way the game is structured, the math favors them. Probability is going to favor them, so they can win 51, 52, 53% of the time. But if they do it often enough, over time, they're going to grind out a consistent profit. And that's the same with traders. As long as you're structuring things correctly, and you just keep executing properly, you can do very well. That probability, in fact, I said the probability of pretty much anything you do, buy or sell at any time, is between 40 and 60%. If you work out the math, as long as you go for a reward that's twice your risk, mathematically, you're going to make money. So if you just consistently do that and don't get impatient and, I've been losing, I got a small profit, I'm just going to take it. No, you got to hold, and because you need that 40% of the time when you make 2 to 3 times your risk, you need that to erase the losses. So I think that simple math is one of the keys to making money. Patiently find a setup, place your stop, and hold for a reward that is 2 to 3 times your risk, and be confident that 40% of the time or more, you're going to achieve your goal and you'll be a consistently profitable trader. Once you learn how to ride a bicycle, it's hard to remember what it's like not know how to ride a bicycle, right? And you speak English, it's your second language, and it's hard to imagine what it was like before you could speak English. And what I do remember is for the first 5 years or so, even for the first 10 years, I would have tremendous stress trading. I always felt like I was ripped up inside, that I was fighting the market and the market was constantly beating me. And it was just a miserable feeling. And at some point, it just started to melt away. And now, I'm really at peace in the market. Every day, I like it. It's really enjoyable because I sit there and everything that's happening, I look at it and say, I see what the bulls are doing. I understand what the bears are doing. They're balanced here. Oh, they're not balanced here. By being able to read what the market is doing and what the forces are and who's winning, it just makes it first of all fun, because I feel like I'm seeing stuff that a whole bunch of people are not seeing. So it's fun to see. It's fun to see something that nobody else is seeing, or not many people are seeing, and it's also fun to watch it unfold. You see something happening, and you know what the possible outcomes are, and certain outcomes are more likely than others, and you just see it start to unfold, and it's just really satisfying. It's fun.
I let the market tell me what it's going to do. And then, kind of like a surfer, are the waves really big today? Okay, if the waves are really big, I'm going to surf it differently if the waves are medium, and I'm going to surf it differently if the waves are small. So I think when people develop strategies, their strategy has to have the ability to change and adapt with the market conditions.
Well, for me, I think the most important thing is what I said. You have to be doing it for both. You have to be happy. You have to get to a place where you're very peaceful trading. You have to find a style of trading that's compatible with your personality, and you have to be peaceful and you have to be happy. And one of the keys to that is you have to be trading the I don't care size. You have to be trading small enough so that you really don't care too much about losing. If you have a lot of money, small could be still pretty big. But if you're a person starting out with a $5,000 account, I would trade either Forex markets or the micro E-mini contracts for many months until you become consistently good as a trader. So trade small, trade very, very small, so that you're not getting stressed out and thinking about money. You want to focus on what the market is telling you, not on the money.